Hi guys, in this video I'm just going to show you a few techniques for using watercolour pencils. And the paper I'm going to be using is this watercolour paper here. I'm not going to be stretching it out or anything, although you wouldn't need to with this anyway, I wouldn't have thought, because this is only to show a few examples anyway. I was actually tempted to do the video on this kind of paper, but because it's a smaller pad, I didn't think it would show up as well, so this is a mixed media pad that you could use as well. It's a little bit thinner. And the watercolour pencils that I'm using are these ones, Prima watercolour pencils. This is the basic set. In terms of colours, I think you can get like skin tones and I don't know what the rest are off the top of my head, but I just got these ones through today, so I thought I'd give them a go. So I'm just going to choose two colours from the set just so that I can use them to blend into each other. I thought a blue and a purple would work quite well. So to start with, I am just going to put these colours down quickly, and I'm not going to blend these first ones just because I want to keep that there to sort of compare throughout. And I'm hoping that the lighting I've set up is good enough and clear enough to see. So this is just literally the pencil colours not been used with water. And now I'm just going to do exactly the same, but this one we will use watercolour on. Right, and all I've got is just any old brush. I think this was just a cheap one I got on Amazon, although I can't actually remember, and just a little tub of water. So I'm just wetting my brush and I'm literally just going to soak that on. Put quite a lot of water on here actually. I'm just going to try and blend them into each other. I've actually probably put too much water on. But these primer pencils seem to be taking it up really well. So I've not exactly gone for a perfectly even blend because I've ended up mixing the colours into each other a bit, but it worked really well actually. So that's obviously going to be, for most people, the method that you would use the most. Just draw on, add a bit of water to paint over the top. Another method we're going to quickly try is here. I'm just going to put on a bit of water to actually wet the page. Now if you are doing this, make sure that your page is specifically watercolour, or as I said, mixed media, or something that can hold water without buckling too much. So when the page is as wet as you want it to be, I am just going to start with my blue, and I'm going to draw on that to see how well that looks. So this, compared to this one here, this looks like it's coming across more like using pencils without watercolour, but without as much tooth in the page as this first one. I'm not sure whether that actually made any sense. Hopefully it did. Obviously doesn't blend as easily as that second one we did. And one thing that I do notice with this one that I will point out, I mean, I'm doing this quite fast, I'm doing a bit of a rushed job of it, but it is actually, I'm not sure how well you can see, it's actually taking up some little bits of the page, but that could just be because of how wet I've made it. It's definitely worth trying, but for me personally, nah. Okay, and another alternative is to get your pencil and just wet the end, so you could either just add a bit of water with your brush and try drawing that on there, which works quite well, but as you can see it runs out quite quick, so you would end up potentially having to do this quite a lot. Maybe if you're just doing one little area it might be good. Or the smarter way of probably doing it is, instead of dabbing it on with your brush, you can just dip your pencil into the water. I'm only dipping the tip in, but that should be enough. Now it probably doesn't pick up much more water than using the brush tip to add it, but it's quicker to do, so it's probably a smarter option. Again, it's leaving some areas that are blended quite well into the page, and then some areas that have got a bit of tooth as if they were just done without water. So just like traditional pencils. Gives quite a nice effect though, and the effect obviously that you will prefer will obviously depend on your style and whatnot, so a lot of it is down to personal preference. What someone thinks is good, someone else might hate, and vice versa. So you need to just play around with these techniques and see which one you prefer. Make sure you dry them off afterwards, so that you don't get a bit of a surprise when you next use them. And one thing I just want to show you is that you can actually go over, once this watercolour one has dry, could go back over it if you wanted the colour to be more vibrant or a stronger colour. That being said, these ones that I've put on actually seem to be quite strong anyway, so I don't think you would need to, but some people like to do this. I'm just going to see if it can take a bit more water again. And it's probably worth remembering that sometimes when you wet watercolour you can move it around a bit. Even after it's dried, it'll just wet it again. So as I've said, I don't think with these ones you would need to go over them anyway, but some people like to build up layers. Maybe I just put a lot on the first layer. And then the final thing I'm going to show you is just again wetting your page. I don't know why I've done these completely in this top left corner out of the full page. However much water you want to put on there. And just taking one of your colours and a knife. This is just one that I had handy. This is actually one from my kitchen, so maybe find a better alternative to this. And we're just going to use this to flick little bits onto the page, just little bits of lead. And while the page is wet, it gives you quite a, well, I don't actually know what you would call the effect, but I think it's a pretty cool effect, especially for like backgrounds and things like that. Maybe if you're doing some sort of, you know, space scene, or I don't know. Use your imaginations. Now obviously as it dries it's not going to blend into the page as much, but hopefully you can see that it has really blended in a lot. And I don't know how wet the page actually is there now, but I'm going to try it with a few blue bits as well. If it has dried too much then obviously it won't work as well. And make sure it is the actual lead that you're shaving into it, because you don't just want little bits of wood on your page. So there you have it, a couple of ways how to use them. First one, without water. This one is just your standard colouring in and adding water to it, which is probably what most people would use. It's probably what I would use as well, to be fair. It's kind of like using watercolour paints, but I'm not that good at painting. I prefer using pencils, so this just gives me a bit more control for detailed areas. This one was adding water first. It works, it gives a bit of texture. It's kind of more of a cross between these two. And the third one, dipping your pencils into water or adding water with a brush and scribbling it on, which I do like, but I think it would be a bit too time consuming depending on the piece you're working on. And then finally, wet your page and just using a knife or some other tool, shave your pencil lead onto the wet page. Obviously make sure you're being safe when you're doing that. And as mentioned, these are the watercolours that I used. I think there are maybe 6 sets. I think there's a fall and autumn one, skin tones, earth, basics, etc. I'll put a link to some in the description box below. Right guys, that's all I wanted to show you. I hope you found the video useful. Thanks so much for watching.